If you're planning to travel in 2022, we need to talk about the state of travel and tourism. If you're new here, my name is Rob. I'm a tour guide and the founder of TripHacks DC Tours. One of the most frequent questions that I've been getting asked over the last few months is whether travel and tourism is coming back in Washington, DC. And the answer is complicated. It's complicated because travel is coming back, at least from the lowest of the lows. But more importantly than whether it's back or not, travel and tourism is different now. And I'm afraid some people are in for a bit of a shock if they're taking their first trip in several years in 2022. So let me start you with some numbers. At the end of March, I closed the books on Q1 for TripHacks DC Tours. And great news for me is that tour business was the highest that it's ever been in a Q1. It was even higher than Q1 in 2019. So that means that travel and tourism is back and everything is great, right? Well, not quite. One thing I've noticed when I've been out giving tours is that there are not noticeably more people here right now than there were in 2019, at least as far as I can remember. Now, compared to 2020 and 2021, yes, of course there's more people right now. In 2020, you could go to the National Mall and basically have the entire place to yourself. Now, that's just my observation, but it does seem to be backed up by statistics from the local tourism board. They expect domestic visitation will only hit 87% of 2019 levels. And they don't expect international travel to return to pre-pandemic levels until 2025. So, if tourism is still depressed, how is my little tour company doing so well? My hunch is that this all has to do way more with the supply side of the equation than the demand side. I went back and watched my video from 2018 about hop-on, hop-off bus tours. And I realized at the time I made it, there were 4 companies offering this service in Washington, DC. And in 2022, there's one. And that one doesn't even have human tour guides anymore. It's basically just a bus ride. Similarly, I have confirmed that there are bike tour companies, Segway tour companies, and one of the top-rated walking tour companies in DC, all out of business, or at least still in limbo and not operating in 2022. And it's not just tour companies, and it's not just DC. Airlines are flying fewer planes, and they're cutting, not adding flights, despite the demand. Museums here and elsewhere are not back to their pre-pandemic capacities. There are challenges affecting all kinds of destinations. If you want a non-DC perspective, I highly recommend the video that my friend Chris Rainey made over on his channel, Yellow Productions, where he talked about his experience visiting Las Vegas earlier this year. It's about an hour long, but honestly worth watching the entire thing. But the short version of it is, things are different. If, like me, you have not been to Las Vegas since pre-pandemic, if you show up this year expecting a pre-pandemic experience, you are probably going to leave disappointed. In 2022, I generally think travelers can expect fewer choices, less availability, and higher prices. If you visited a destination before, some of your favorite places from a prior trip may no longer be around. Remember, at the beginning of all of this, tourism companies were bracing for a month, maybe 2 months of closures, not 2 years of losses. And yes, there were government programs to support small businesses, which I really believe helped prevent a small business apocalypse. But remember, those programs were not intended to keep companies with no business afloat for 2 years. So it is not surprising to me that many companies didn't make it. It's also not surprising to me that people who previously worked in the tourism industry got other jobs and don't want to come back, or maybe even moved away entirely. And for the companies that survived, they might have lost all of their people, and now 2022 is rebuilding from scratch. The bottom line is, demand for travel is coming back, but it's still rough out here. So let's talk about what you, the traveler, can do about it. To some extent, there's nothing you can do. This is just the reality now. But probably the most important thing that is in your control is planning ahead. I hate turning away tour business, but at the end of the day, there's only one me and there's only so many tour guides and so much availability. If you wait too long to book your trip or plan your activities, it might be too late. Tickets might be sold out and reservations might be booked up. The same goes for things like airfare and hotel rooms. I wouldn't count on any last-minute deals this year. The earlier you can book everything, the more likely you will get what you want. And most importantly, set your expectations correctly. And with all of that, I'm really curious to know, if you traveled in 2020 or 2021, what was it like? Were the places you visited mostly the same, or had they changed? Leave a comment and let me know. And if one of the places you are planning to travel is Washington, D.C., and you're interested in signing up for a Trip Hacks DC guided tour, you can click or tap on the Capitol Dome on the left side of my head. That'll send you right over to triphacksdc.com, where you can see all of the tours that we offer. And wherever you're going, enjoy your trip.